I'm Calvin. I'm an alcoholic. I'm grateful to be here, and I thank everyone for that actually showed up tonight. It's nice, but it's nice to have a smaller group, honestly, because last time I did this, there was a lot of people. So having a smaller group is a little more comfortable for me. I never thought in a million years that I would do something like this. I don't like, never liked public speaking, and uh, just coming to the clubhouse sometimes for me is tough. Just being around people. You may not know that. I keep it to myself, but it's true. Just being around people is a difficult thing for me. Uh, so doing this to me is a testament to what this program has done for me. It's it's helped me to learn about myself, the reason why I think the way that I do, and why I act the way I do, or did. I still do sometimes. And so I look for that kind of stuff in my life every day. What kind of things are going on in my day? At the end of the day, we all talk about 10, 11, and 12. At the end of the day, I think about what have I learned today, whether it's good or bad, and what can I use? How can I use it? And most of the time, when I'm looking at those things, even if it's a bad situation, I realize that it's something I can learn. I can learn from, and I can carry with me. I can share with somebody else, and that makes a big difference for me in my life. Uh, it's not just about for me. It's not just about going back and making amends for the things I may have done during the day, but it's also just it's a holistic view of life in general for me that I never had before, and I'm grateful for it. I really am. I'm grateful to have family in here, people that care about me, people that are like me. It's all made a big difference in my life. So I guess for me, what I'd like to start out by just kind of talking about my background as a kid, because I feel like I have to go into therapy, to the VA, and all kinds of other stuff that I've been to, and learning about myself. I realized that my personality was shaped by how I was brought up. But what I also realized is I can't use that as an excuse to be the person that I used to be, nor do I want to go back and be the person that I used to be. So just starting out very early in my life, when I was 5, my parents got divorced, which was a traumatic experience for me and for my brother. I had a younger brother. I actually have 3 other brothers and 3 sisters, but only one of them is a real brother. So there's half brothers, half sisters. And that was a traumatic event, especially for my brother, because my parents got divorced, and then my dad and my mother were fighting over who was going to get custody. I'm sure you've heard this story before with other families, and it made it really difficult on me and my brother. But to add to the problem, for me, my dad got remarried about a year later. He married a 16-year-old girl. Now, he was 20, okay, but still, she was. My mother, when she had me, she was 15. My dad likes to rob the cradle, I guess. He likes the young ones. But my stepmother was, I can't cuss. So she was awful. She was awful. She was physically and mentally abusive to me and my brother. I hated her for a long time. Really hated her. I wanted to kill her. I know people don't like to hear that, but it's true. I wanted her off the face of the earth. I couldn't stand her that much. That kind of stuff helped to mold me into the person that I became. But let's pile on top of that a little bit more. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. So that's even worse. I don't know how many people are familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses. Um, Fear. It was fear for me when it came to that religion, and growing up, I was afraid of everything. And I was different. I was different than everyone else I went to school with, because I didn't celebrate holidays. I didn't celebrate birthdays. I didn't do any of that stuff. So imagine being in 6th grade, and they have a Christmas party in the class, and you have to go sit in the principal's office because you can't participate in the party. It may not seem like a big deal now, right? It's like I don't want to go to parties anyways. But back then, it's a big deal. And what it did to me is it helped to not only create fear, but a trust issue. I didn't trust my stepmother, and I didn't trust that religion. I didn't trust a lot of things around me. The result is that I didn't trust people in general. And just growing up having to do something that I just detested. And I know you've got a knock on your door from a Jehovah's Witness before. Somebody in here has. I used to have to do that. And I was like 5 years old at the time. So imagine being a 5-year-old going to a door, knocking on a door, trying to sell their magazines. The Watchtower and Awake is what they're called, if anybody is not familiar with that. And I had to do that for my whole life. I also had to, at they call them Kingdom Hall. I call it a church now because that's what it is. But the Kingdom Hall, they got one over here on 90. I had to get up like this in front of people at a very young age and do sermons on verses from the Bible. I guess the only good thing was I got to know the Bible pretty well. But all of that stuff was just, to me, was horrible. It was a 6, 7-year-old should not be going up on a stage and preaching. I mean, you can, but I shouldn't have been. But going door to door as well as a 5-year-old and selling magazines is just, I look back on that and gives me a little shivers because I just hated it so much. So all of those things as time was going by caused me to lose trust in people, and have fear, but also to be sneaky. I don't think of another word for sneaky. I lied a lot. And so when I graduated from high school, I became, because my people pleaser. Okay, that's another thing I'll talk about. It just popped in my head. I always wanted to please my dad. I wanted my dad to be proud of me. My dad was a Jehovah's Witness, and my whole family on that side are all Jehovah's Witnesses. They still are. And I wanted my dad to be proud, so I became what they call a pioneer. And pioneer is a person who spends 90 hours a month going door to door. Well, I obviously did not want to do that. So me and a friend of mine used to go to this old guy's house, play cards, and eat pizza every day. That's what we did every day. Because I just wasn't, I just didn't want to do it. So I was not only fearful, but I lied a lot, and that continued throughout my life. And I got to I packed my stuff up one day. Other people have heard this story, but my parents went to their church. I didn't want to be there anymore. I had turned 18, and I put my guitar and some clothes in my car, and I left. And if I remember right, I did leave a note on the table to let them know that I was leaving, but I just left. Again, another thing from my past that I'm not proud of, that's for sure. And I moved to my mom's, and my mom lived in another town, and she was married to an alcoholic, and so that was where I got my first real taste of alcohol. And I realized when I drank that night, the first time I ever drank, and it was marijuana too, but the drinking, I realized, hey, if I drink this stuff and I drink enough, I feel pretty good. I'm not afraid to talk to anybody. I'm not afraid to talk to girls. I'm not afraid to do whatever I want to do. And I do stupid stuff too. But man, that was awesome. It was like a magic elixir. Magic. My problem was, even from the very first time that I drank too much. And I just continued to do that. And I was encouraged by my stepfather because he was proud of me that I could drink so much. You know, what a thing to be proud of. But he was an alcoholic. He still is an alcoholic. I call him that. He hasn't called himself that. But to me, it was like I said, magic elixir. I just could do anything. I could say anything. I even said some dumb stuff, obviously. But he was proud of me. He had walked in one day and I drank like 15 beers. I don't know how the hell I did that at that age, but and he was so proud. You know, I had a stack of beer cans on the side of the chair, and then I would black out a lot and pass out a lot, and then I met another guy, a friend of mine, and he started talking about the Air Force, and I realized, my life wasn't going anywhere at the time. And I had a pretty good job. I worked for General Dynamics in Groton, Connecticut. I was an electrician on submarines, the ones they were building. And I just decided one day I'm going to join the military. I'll say the military experience for me was good. It taught me a lot of good stuff, and it's gotten me where I am right now. And as we always say, everything that happened to me in my life happened for a reason. And I'm where I am right now, standing here in front of you because of everything that went on in my life, good or bad. So I decided to join the military, and I don't know how many people here have been in the military, but alcohol was at the center of most of the things that I did in the military. There was always alcohol somewhere. Now, when I first, before I went to tech school in Maryland. I was on the explosive ordnance disposal, basically bomb squad in the military, and I had met my wife before I left. So I got married to her before I graduated from tech school, so 1987. So I was jumping into a lot of things like, you know, I just did it. I didn't think about it. I just did it. I'm not sorry that I married her, by the way, and I'm not sorry I joined the military. But my point is that I didn't have real good decision making skills. Being in a family like I was in, where I only associated or hung out with people that were in my religion. I wasn't allowed to have friends outside of the religion. And what that did was I lived in kind of a bubble. So when I joined the military, I could not deal with people well at all. I was of the mindset that everybody was going to be like the people that I had grown up with, but they're not. And so it was very, very difficult for me in the military because I just couldn't relate, and I couldn't take a joke. I couldn't even take a joke back then. If somebody said something mean to me or jokingly even to me, I just took it the wrong way always. So that's a hard way to live. Uh, so I was stationed at Luke Air Force Base in Arizona for 7 years, working out on the ranges, and we would pick up practice bombs. They're like these 25-pound bombs. They're blue. We pick up thousands and thousands of those, and the reason I bring that up is that as far as alcohol was concerned, we had dump trucks. And if you drove a dump truck and you got it stuck, you had to buy beer. Or if you did anything wrong, you had to buy beer. So by the time the day was over, you had 3 or 4 cases of beer every night at billeting, every single night. And so we'd play poker and we'd drink beer. And I'd do it till 3 o'clock in the morning. We had to get up at 4. I was young then, so I could handle it. If I did that now, forget about it. But forget about it. I remember one time I got so wasted the night before on tequila that I couldn't work the next day, and I had to lay in the truck. And that, and you know what the punishment was? I had to buy beer. So it's just alcohol. When I was in, I don't know how it is now, but when I was in, alcohol was a big deal because you couldn't do anything else. It reminds me of being a Jehovah's Witness. Jehovah's Witnesses aren't allowed to do anything. Can't smoke, can't do drugs, can't, which is good, I guess. No holidays, no birthdays, nothing, but you can drink. And there's a whole story about why they drink now. I'm not getting to, but you can drink, but you're not supposed to get drunk, which I see people, I know people that get drunk. Anyways, like I said, that's a whole nother story. So it's the same thing in the military. You can't do anything else, but you can drink. And there's always a Class 6 store on base, a liquor store on base. At every base, there's a liquor store. No matter where you go, you can get alcohol. And alcohol was my go-to. If I was feeling depressed or I felt out of place, then I would drink. And something I learned in here was that when you start drinking, that's pretty much when you start growing up. And so I started drinking when I was about 18. And I acted like an 18-year-old till I was about 52, because I'm 57 now. So the last 5 years, I've finally grown up. But I'm just glad that I can see that now, whereas I couldn't see that before and didn't understand that before. I couldn't understand why I was the way that I was. Why am I like this? Why can't I get along with people? Why am I so sensitive? Blah, blah, on and on. And when I got done at Luke Air Force Base, I got stationed in Germany. And I don't know if anybody's been to Germany, but as you know, they love their beer in Germany. And in my shop that I worked in at Spangdahlem Air Base, there was actually a bar in there. and the fridge was loaded with alcohol. He knows what I'm talking about. And so at the end of the day, ring the bell 3 times and then start drinking. And I remember this one instance. It still scares me to this day. I didn't drink a lot that day, fortunately, but I did drink some. And I was following a friend of mine back to another town because that's where I lived at the time. And we were driving pretty fast through one of the small German towns. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this little girl starting to run across the street. And she stopped. But when I look back at that and I think about what wreckage that would have caused, not only to her family but to mine, it's scary to think about. So you would think, well, let me stop drinking and driving because it's dangerous. But that's not what an alcoholic does. I rationalized that. Well, I didn't run her over. That's good. But I would kept doing the things that I was doing because I didn't know how to stop and I didn't want to stop at the time. So we would have these parties. If I pissed my wife off so much too. Parties at the shops, and I would ignore my wife because I was drinking, which would make her mad. So my family life wasn't that great either, because when I look back on how I acted during that time, I was selfish. I only cared about me and if I was having a good time. And I would want to get my wife to drive so I wouldn't have to drive so I could drink. And she said, well, if I want to drink, like, we don't drink, that whole thing. And so that's pretty much how I spent my entire. I don't remember a lot of Germany because I was drunk so much, and I missed out on a lot of opportunities over there just to go see stuff. The only reason I really saw stuff is because I had to go on these trips for the military occasionally to other countries over there, and I deployed a few times to Bosnia and a few other places, and they didn't let you drink there, so that was probably a good thing for me. So I went from there and I came back to the States and I got stationed in Maryland. And I kind of had a bit of a religious experience when I got to Maryland for some reason. I remember what it was. I met a guy who was very religious, born again Christian, and I started hanging out with him a lot. Started learning things. Became what I called spiritual at the time, and I actually felt like my life had changed. I didn't drink for about a year. Here's the problem. I don't have a stick to it attitude. That's just not me. And I don't like to be told what to do. And I don't like to be told what I'm doing is wrong or if I'm doing it right. I'm just not that type of person. I shy away from that still to this day, from religious type stuff. Spirituality is a different story. Um, and so I hung out with this guy for I stayed sober for about a year, and I stayed steady for about a year. And then I couldn't take it anymore. So I started drinking again. And my wife was really happy about that year. Out of 37 years, she was happy about that year because I wasn't drinking. And I don't act the same when I drink. As everybody knows, my personality, my bad personality comes out when I drink. I'm not violent or anything like that, but I just act like an ass, and say things I shouldn't say, and say things I don't remember. And then I got involved with the Mormons after that. I had a really good friend who was a Mormon. I was looking for something, is what I was doing. I was looking for something to make me better, to make me happy. I was so unhappy. I really was unhappy. Within that unhappiness, there was lots of thoughts of suicide during that time. I just hated myself so much. I did not like who I was, but I couldn't figure out how to get where I am today. I just could not figure it out. And so growing up in a religious household, I figured, get involved in religion and that'll help. So I got involved in the Mormon religion, and that lasted about 6 months. And I just couldn't do it anymore. I just could not. And so then I just reverted back to the old Calvin. Unhappy. I was still unhappy even then, but I was happier when I was at least acknowledging the fact that I wasn't the center of the universe. But it just didn't last for me. I just couldn't stick to it. And I got stationed down here at Eglin. And that's where I retired from after 20 years in the military. And continued drinking, got a civilian job, continued drinking. And then my wife was very unhappy with me about my drinking. And as you know, when we do when we come to AA and change our lives or try to change our lives for somebody else, it doesn't work. I was doing it for her. So I'd come to the meetings and I would sit right over there and I would play the part. You know, everybody says, "Hey, I'm an alcoholic," and I would say it too. I didn't really mean it, but I said it because I wanted to. Felt like I needed to fit in. I needed to show that I was part of the group, and so that lasted me about 6 months too, because I wasn't serious about it. I was doing it because my wife wanted me to do it, and you know, when they say that when you drink, when you go back out and drink, it's always worse, or they weren't kidding. I did not waste any time. I got back out there, started drinking again, and it turned into drinking at work, which is the stupidest thing well, not the stupidest thing I've ever done, but it's one of the stupidest things I've ever done. Drinking at work. I have a really, really good job, and I'm so happy to have that job right now. But I was drinking at work. I had booze in my desk, but I always thought nobody can tell I'm drinking. I walk straight and I talk right, but you can't tell I'm drinking. But you could smell it, because I wasn't like trying to drink vodka. I had like whiskey in my desk and a few other things, and I just chugged that shit during. I'm sorry for the cursing. I just chug it during the day, because as I felt like that bottle in my desk had a voice. It was talking to me. I'm not the kind of person, as everybody else can probably understand what I'm saying. I'm not the kind of person who can just pick up and have a shot and be done. That's not how it works for me. I am of the mind that alcohol is meant to drink so you can get drunk, so you can get wasted. That's why alcohol exists. If I'm not gonna get drunk, then I'm just gonna drink Coke. I'm not gonna drink one beer, right? It's true. It's very true. Alcohol, it called to me. I would buy a bottle on. Initially, I was buying a bottle on a Friday afternoon, and I would get excited at the end of the day that I was going to the Class 6 store, liquor store in Base, to buy me a bottle of Southern Comfort. It was exciting to me. I don't know why, looking at it now, but I was excited, and I'd bring that bottle home, and I always get the big bottle. I didn't mess around with little bottles. No point in that. And I would put that in my I have a shrunk, like a wooden wall unit that I had gotten when I was in Germany and Belgium. And I had a little bar on there, and I would keep the booze in there. And then I would sit in the chair that was right in front of it. And again, it started talking to me. You got to drink me, And so I would drink it. And I would never have a bottle left by the end of the weekend. There was no way. It had a hold on me, like big time. And so when I started my civilian job at Herbert Field, which I'm doing now, I've been doing that for 10 years now. And I stopped coming here and I started drinking. Then it was, like I said, drinking at work. I drive drunk all the time, almost every day I would drink and drive. I am lucky in some way that I never got caught. I'm glad I never got caught, but I was itching for it. I can tell you that. What did I say? Cruising for a bruising. Yeah, I was looking for it. It got to the point where, I thought I was the smartest alcoholic. I knew you guys weren't as smart as me, right? So I see myself still to this day. It was almost like a dream. I see myself kind of floating into the liquor store on Base. I can see myself walking in, and I'd buy a $6 bottle of Smart Water, the Smart Water, and then I'd pour it out and I'd fill it with vodka. Because I figured now I can carry around a bottle of Smart Water, right? I mean, it's so ironic, right? Anyways, carry around a bottle of water that's actually vodka, and thinking that nobody's going to know. That's where I got to. Hiding alcohol at home. In my car, I would keep it in my glove box in my car. And I remember one day we were going to a Christmas party, and my company Christmas party. I don't mind going to them now, but back then it was nerve-wracking to me. It meant I had to talk to people and I had to socialize because I was the boss. So I had to do all that stuff, and I did not like it, and I wasn't comfortable with it. And so I would have to get really ripped before I went. And while I was there, I'd have to get ripped. And by the time the night was over, I wasn't driving anywhere. But it would upset my wife greatly. Upset my wife. I don't know how many times I slept in the spare room, but anyways. Um, so I continued to do that for about probably 6 months. And I was sure, I'm just, I'm amazed at my wife and how good her smeller is. Because I'm telling you, I took a couple shots one day and then I didn't have any more. I don't know how I did that. And she said, "Are you drinking?" I'm like, "What? No, no, of course I'm not drinking." Of course, I lied about it. And she knew I was drinking just from that small amount. I don't know how, but she did. I figured, and I drank a lot of vodka towards the end because I thought you couldn't smell it. But if you drink a whole bottle of vodka, you're going to smell it, right? So yeah, I was the smartest guy around. I knew what to do, what not to do as far as alcohol was concerned. And I threw up in my car a couple of times on the way to work because I was already drunk. Driving through the gate like that on base, Jesus. Thinking about that is just scary to think that I was doing that stuff. So I had a prescription for Xanax for anxiety, and I don't know if anybody knows, but you should never mix alcohol with Xanax. Bad idea. So I was at work. I took some Xanax, um, and I drank in the afternoon with the government guys. The government guys always had booze, and I'd go over there and hang out. I liked the guys, they were good guys, and I would hang out with them. But they liked to drink, and they would have alcohol on their desks as well. And I got S-faced. I went out to my car and I sat in my car. This is how bad it had gotten. I was sitting in my car, and next thing I know, my phone's ringing. My car's running. I'm in the parking lot. I look around. There's nobody else there because it was 7 o'clock at night. I left work at 4. So I was passed out or whatever in my car for 3 hours. And my wife was wondering where the hell I was. And she was the one that was calling me, by the way. And you would think that that would have made me say, maybe I should stop drinking. No, no, no. I figured I'll just deal with what I have to deal with when I get home and she'll get over it. And then a few weeks later, I was in my car and I got sick in my car. So I had my door open and the parking lot's full at this time, and I'm puking out my door of my car. And somebody comes walking by. You all right? Yeah, I just ate some bad food, whatever. Uh, but the absolute worst was taking Xanax, drinking alcohol, and I was also on Zoloft too for depression. Right. So I was just trying to destroy myself. I mean, alcohol is a depressant, and then I'm depressed. I'm taking depressants, and I'm drinking something that's a depressant, and taking Xanax. Think about all that stuff at the same time. But it was okay. It was legal, right? It was my prescription, so it's legal. It's okay to drink. Buying booze is legal. And I left work one day, and this was right before I started coming back here. And I left work at about 4 o'clock, and I don't remember driving home. I completely blacked out the entire way home. I still to this day have no recollection of driving my car home. And when I think about that, I think about I could have killed somebody and not even known it, or could have killed myself. At the time, I didn't care, but I could have. And I got home, and my wife said because she talked to me about it later on, I tripped over the dog. I said I tripped over the dog. I didn't trip over the dog. I just tripped because I was so drunk. I stumbled into the house. My wife said that I argued with her for an hour and a half, and I do not remember it. So I woke up the next morning in the spare room, and I immediately started thinking, what did I do yesterday? And I couldn't remember. That's the scariest feeling I've ever had in my life. I had complete amnesia, no recollection at all of the day before. I felt like my brain hurt because I was trying to think so hard about what it was that I did. Probably a hangover was making it hurt too, and that scared me. It scared me enough where I said, you know what, I need to do something about this. The other part of this I was thinking about was that AA ruined my drinking as well. I mean, every time I would take a drink, I think about AA. I think about people here. You know, my first sponsor was Jerry Hendershot. He's passed away since, but he was my first sponsor. So his face would pop up in my head, and then other people that worked here, or came here, Dave and Darlene, people that were here a long time ago, you know, they would pop up in my head, and it would ruin my drinking because I felt guilty. But that didn't stop me. But I'm just saying it did. It popped up in my head, you know. And that morning, I made a decision. Let's go back. I want to go back again because this is another kind of weird story that happened to me. The first time that I came here, the very first night I was here, Jerry H was chairing the meeting. He chaired a lot of meetings, and I heard about getting a sponsor. I'm thinking, well, I want to be part of the group, so I probably should get a sponsor. So I asked Jerry, hey, could you be my sponsor? And he said no. And he said no because he had like 6 or 7 other sponsees. And so what did I think? Well, F you then. I'm done. I'm not coming back here. Embarrass me like that, you know, jerk. But so when I came back to the rooms, it was a wonderful experience because when I walked back in here, I expected to be made to stand in a corner somewhere with a dunce cap on, you know, to be belittled and berated because I went back out and drank. That did not happen. Let me tell you something. How does that go? The promotion of this program, it's in the examples of others. When you see other people able to do it and their stories, it has an effect. It had an effect upon me. When I walked in here and people were hugging me and saying, welcome back, wow, that's never happened to me before in my life. That felt so good. And so then my mind started to change a little bit. You know, that psychic change they talk about, where I just started thinking of things a little bit differently. And Jerry came to me and asked me if I needed the sponsor, which I was like, wow. You know, a lot of things happened to me that they happened for a reason. I can't explain it, but it happened for a reason. Because he came to me and asked me if I needed a sponsor. And I'm like, yeah. And he was a good sponsor. He was tough, but he was a good sponsor. I remember one time I didn't show up for a meeting, and he called me and asked me why I wasn't at the meeting. And my immediate thought, because this was when I first started, was like, who are you? How dare you call me? How dare you call me and ask me where I was? I wasn't there. That's all. I was thinking this. I didn't say it. I was really angry. I was really angry. So I thought this program, you can come to the meetings when you want to come to the meetings. You know, nobody's forcing you to do what you don't want to do, and blah, 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 blah. This is my alcoholic mind thinking. And I just hung up with him. I called him back later to tell him. I was led to do it for some reason. I called him back and told him what I was thinking. And he said, yeah, I knew you were thinking that. Because he had been around for so long and he had seen what alcoholics are like, and he knew that I would be thinking that. But it's probably one of the best things he could have done for me, because I looked at things a lot differently after that. Yeah, he was good, really good guy and really good sponsor. He was very patient with me, because when I first came into these rooms, I remember another story with Dave. I came in the rooms, I was pretty much a devout atheist. I only had to rely on myself. Nobody else was going to give me anything or do anything for me. I needed to do it myself. Now, that's obviously not true, because everything sitting right here, I've had people help me. My wife has helped me. My family's helped me along the way with deployments and all that other stuff that I've had to do. But I was so selfish, I just did not realize that at the time. But I came in here not believing in anything. I was spiritually bankrupt. There was nothing inside me. I was a hollow shell, really. And so I was sitting over there one day, and I was looking at Dave for some reason. I'll always remember this. And I said, well, I don't believe in God. That's what I said in the meeting. I thought I was going to get a rise out of everybody, you know. Everybody like, get out of here, you know, atheist. Pitchforks and torches and all that. Chase me out to my car, chase me down the road. And Dave didn't even give me an expression. Nothing. Nobody else did either. Nobody even. And I said, oh, man. You believe what you believe in this room. You don't, but I don't have to come in here and make it a point, because that's what I was doing. I was making it a point to let people know that I didn't believe in God, because I didn't. And I felt like it was stupid. That was my thinking about it. Um, so all those little things occurred, that second time that I came back. And I remember I was talking to somebody one day, Richard is his name. He lives in Canada. I was talking to him one day about the big book. And I said, that big book is so outdated. I mean, if my wife read that chapter to the wife or whatever it is, she'd just throw it out the window. This has got to be updated. And he's like, what makes you so friggin' smart? So this book has been working since the 1930s, and how can you come along and say you can change the book? So that made me think too. I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. So just moving on now, because I see I've been talking for a while. When I started coming to the meetings regularly, and I was coming to the meetings because I wanted to come to the meetings, because I wanted to be better. I didn't want to drink anymore, but I started to find out that I could learn more about Calvin and why I act the way I do, and how I can work to get out of that way of thinking. And so I just continued to come back to the meetings and work my steps. It took me a long time to get through my steps, probably a couple of years to get through my steps. But, as one person here says all the time, Dave, it's not a race. It's not a race. It was my pace that I needed to go at. But the best part of the steps for me was when I started making an inventory of myself. And I've said this before, but when I was in here the first time, what the hell was that? Helicopter. When I first came in here and I was sitting here just kind of here going through the motions, my thought was, you guys are all messed up and I'm not. I haven't done anything to anybody. You guys are bad. Well, this is going to be, step 4 is going to be easy, because I'm only have to write a couple things down and I'll be done. I was wrong. I still think of things that I can put on my list to this day after 5 years, because I had forgotten about it. So being able to write down, and not only did my sponsor have me write down the inventory, but he also had me connect a defective character to each thing, so that when I had to go to do an amends later on, I could explain to the person why I acted the way I did, not just say, I'm sorry. He helped me to get to a point where I could go say, hey, look, back then I was arrogant and I was selfish and I didn't care about other people and I didn't get along with other people and I treated you like crap. And that made a huge difference for me. And I said this the other night, but I thought I was smarter than my sponsor and went and did an amends before I was supposed to. These steps are in a certain order for a reason. And I went and I talked to my sister-in-law, who I didn't really like anyways, but I sat down and I told her what I needed to tell her for an amends. And she just looked at me blankly and then said, I didn't know you were like that. And like I said the other night, it was deflating. It's like a balloon popped. It was deflating to me. It was disappointing. I went back and told my sponsor this, and I told you, dumbass. I told you not to do that. And I did not do that again after that. But that was really important for me, that part of learning about who I am, because I could move on from there and start learning how to be the person I'm meant to be. Even though I was 52 years old when I started this program, it's never too late. Never too late. I started to learn how to put away the anger, because I was a very angry person as well. I started learning how to get along with other people, what not to say to other people, even though I want to say something sometimes. And I think the person that I probably hurt the most out of all of it was my wife, my family, because I see my wife all the time, and I was comfortable with my wife, and she had let me do what I wanted to do for 32 years. And the result of that was I felt like I was just walking on her. It's what I was doing. And because of this program, I was able to get to a point where I could never make up for the things that I've done with my wife, but I sure as hell can live every day. We talked about this the other night, live every day making an amends to my wife by the way that I act. And I don't expect my wife to clap for me or tell me I'm a good boy or anything like that. Now, in the past, I would have. Like I said this the other night too, I did the dishes. Yay, Calvin, you did the dishes. You eat on those dishes too, right? I made the bed. You sleep there too. But it was me needing to have somebody tell me that I was good, but I wasn't good. And so my goal now is just to live my life how I know I should live it. But I have to say that I no way I could have done it on my own. As I explained earlier, I tried a lot of different things, a lot of self-help books, meditation, hypnosis, the whole 9 yards. I tried it all to try to become a better person. None of it worked. This works. This worked for me but you have to work it. So I have to continue to stay moving forward always, because otherwise I'll fall back. Even if I don't come to a meeting for a week, I feel myself weird. I feel weird. Start feeling like, uh-oh, what's going on here? I don't feel like drinking, but I start getting angry and I start getting hateful again. Driving at 85 is the example I always bring up. For the most part, I can drive on that road now and be fine. But if I start slipping and not going to meetings and doing the things I'm supposed to, that's when my anger starts coming back again. So it's still there. Those character defects are not gone. They're still there. They're bubbling under the surface. But as long as I do what I'm supposed to do, they won't come back to the surface, or they won't come back to the surface very often. And I know what to do if it does happen. And if I hurt somebody else, I know what to do. I know what to do if I'm not feeling good or right about things. I have a sponsor, but I have this room full of people who have been through the same exact thing I've been through. My story is not unique. And I can come here and I can get that motivation to continue going. And I always walk out that door after every single meeting feeling a lot lighter than I did when I walked in. Whether it's a good day or bad day, it doesn't even matter. Just walking out that door is a great. Driving home, I feel like I'm flying home. It's awesome. Well, maybe I was speeding, but anyways, it's changed my life immensely. I even look at the things now that happened to me as a kid as a benefit to me, because I have met a few guys now that were Jehovah's Witnesses when they were growing up, and they're struggling with it. My cousin's one of them, and I can talk to them now in a way that can help them versus just saying, that's religion's stupid. That doesn't help. So I've learned how to say helpful things, but I learned it all in here. Because like I said, there's no way I could have done this on my own. No way. So I'm just grateful today that my life is the way it is. I hope I continue. I'll never say that I'm still going to be good in a week from now, because I don't know, but I'm good today. And I'll hopefully be good tomorrow. And I do live one day at a time, all the time. I have to. In fact, if 5 years ago, if I had to stand up here and talk to y'all like I am now, I would have been a nervous wreck about it for a week before. That's all I would have thought about. I didn't really think about it until it was about an hour before I had to come here. And then I started thinking, oh God, I got to go there and talk, don't I? But it's calmed me down. It's put me in a different frame of mind. I have that psychic change. The last thing I'll say is, I don't expect my wife. I was talking about my wife and how upset she was with me and how I treated her, but I didn't expect my wife to tell me, good job. But it was the greatest feeling in the world when she said, wow, that's really making a difference, probably about a year ago. That made me feel good that she said that. My son told me the same thing. I didn't realize my son knew I was drinking. They know. And he said, man, you're a completely different person. I've had people at work tell me that, and I don't get into why. But I do not think of it as something that I've done. This program has done it for me. Having some spirituality and realizing I'm not the center of the universe has made a huge difference. I can look at people differently and treat them well. So I'm happy to be here, and thank you for letting me speak tonight.